Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I have degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, and a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy. In this video, I'm not seeking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday. We are here to talk about insecurity, and you guys will hear dogs because my dogs have a friend over and it's noisy. So, and they keep coming in here. So, you can't really stop them. That's okay. Just lots of panting and playing going on. All right, let's see who's in here. Hi, Adric. Thanks for being here. He's number one. Hi, Nina. Thanks for being in here. So today we're going to talk about insecurity. Man, it's pervasive, isn't it? And it seems like with the way the world is going and all the arguing and the combating and confrontations, like insecurity is just always right there. It takes more and more and more and more strength to not be insecure. Yes, Adric was number one. Yep. Yay. Okay. So, and I am going to offer a panel today. So I will put the link in here in a little bit if anybody wants to come up so we can talk about this a little deeper if we want to. So let's talk about some definitions. Because, we got to know what we're talking about. So if we're going to talk about insecurity, we have to talk about security. So the definition of security is the state of being free from danger or threat. So that's feeling secure, being free from danger or threat. Free all the way? Like, doesn't seem like anybody is nowadays, right? Hi, Prince Mugo. Thanks for being in here. Hi, Cutting Up with the Joneses. Thanks for being in here. Okay. I may have to answer a text here in a little bit for the friend to be picked up, the friend dog. All right. So if security is the state of being free from danger or threat, then what is insecurity? Because it's not always the exact opposite, right? So the definition of insecurity is uncertainty or anxiety about oneself. So like self-doubt. Lack of confidence, being open to danger or threat. So there's where the opposite is, or lack of protection. So I think a lot of us have insecurity, right? Be that personal or being open to the threat of danger, being exposed to the threat of danger, not being protected, or not feeling protected, not belonging somewhere. It's kind of pervasive. So that's why I want to talk about the wisdom of insecurity. Okay. Hi, Rade, the cloud engineer. Oh, from New York. Great to have you here. Okay. So before I open the panel, we're going to talk about there are two ways that insecurity manifests, that it shows up. Okay. One is internal, one is external. So for the internal, how it shows up, how you know that this is insecurity is low internal validation. So telling yourself, no, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm smart, I can do this, I'm strong, I can make it. Struggling to accept your own faults, that I call it toxic perfectionism, where you are literally beating yourself up trying to be perfect all the time, which humans are not. um, Problems moving past your mistakes. So perseverating, ruminating, constantly overthinking on mistakes you've made in the past and not being able to move past it. Again, this is all the internals. Trouble getting over previous relationships. So, still being upset about a breakup, still having feelings for somebody that you haven't been with in a very long time, still overthinking and perseverating on what happened or what are they doing or who are they with, right? Like that focus. Jealousy, ruminating on just negative thoughts. So overthinking on negative things, overarchingly perfectionism, and internalized societal bias. So where society has said you are this, this is what everybody thinks of you or whatever, and you internalize it and start thinking it about yourself. So overarchingly, the internal where insecurity comes from is guilt, like a sense of guilt. Okay. Externally, where insecurity, how it manifests, what it looks like is criticism and judgment from others, rejection, sometimes trends, like social media trends that don't include you or tell you about yourself. That's kind of those internal, or I'm sorry, societal biases, shaming and guilt trips, and it's based in ego because people who are attacking you from the outside, they really only ever see your ego. They don't know you like you know yourself. So externally, insecurity comes from shame. So internal is guilt, external is shame. Shame being humiliation caused by wrong or foolish behavior. So somebody trying to shame you by saying what you're doing is wrong or foolish. Then internally, guilt, which is like the feeling that you did something wrong or you were offensive or you offended someone. Okay. So I'm going to put the link in the chat, couple caveats. If you're somebody who has trolled me before, you don't get to come up on the panel because we're talking about serious stuff here. And we're talking about insecurity. I don't want anybody to feel vulnerable and then be open to be attacked and degraded and all kinds of things. We're not doing that. That's number one. Number two, if you come up and we're trying to have a dialogue, multiple people are trying to have a dialogue, and there's somebody who's just over talking other people, I will go ahead and mute them because everybody gets a chance to talk. But if you're being inappropriate, I'm just going to mute you. Again, this is about people, growing as people, learning stuff, taking the fish and leaving the bones, So we don't need all the messy stuff in here. Okay, let me put that in the chat. Oops. Look at me figuring out how to do StreamYard. Okay, so I'm going to keep going until somebody wants to come up. Okay, so we know what insecurity is, like how it feels, where it manifests, for like what it feels like when it manifests, and how is it coming from internal? Is it coming from me? Is it coming from somebody else? A lot of times it can be a mixture of both, because honestly, when somebody's trying to shame you, they're trying to hit a button. They're trying to trigger on something internal so that you'll go ahead and absorb it and take it and feel the guilt, right? People shame you to get you to feel guilty. And then, the way behavior and emotions works, you have a thought, which you have a feeling about, and that dictates your behavior. And then your behavior creates a thought and then an emotion, it just goes around and around. So people will shame you to get you to feel guilt to change your behavior. Okay. So shame and guilt. That's where insecurity comes from. All right. Now, originally, where guilt comes from, our first foray into this is childhood, right? Um, yes, that's the link to join the panel, Prince Mugo. Okay, so when we are children, according to Freud, we develop something called a superego. Now, other theorists have talked about we get our sense of values, we get our belief system, we get our, it's different names, but I'll just use it, the superego, right? And it's called the superego because it's better than the ego, right? Like the ego is how we present ourselves to the world, and it's never going to be 100% accurate unless you are willing and able to be authentic at all times, which will put you in a vulnerable place and it will open you up to attack. So be prepared for that. But we develop something called the superego with our parents because our parents will tell us like right and wrong. Like, we don't do that, or that's bad, or don't talk like that. You don't get to be that way. Respect your elders, respect your parents, don't speak ill of the dead. We're always on time for school. You have to always be on time. If you say you're going to do something, you have to follow through. Like our parents are the first ones to teach us this value system, and we internalize that. It becomes part of our foundation, which is great unless our parents are teaching us a value system that we find later is not useful for ourselves. As an adult, we may make our own decisions and decide that isn't for me, or that was probably not appropriate. Again, our parents are human beings, right? They make mistakes. Some make huge mistakes, but all of them are going to make mistakes because humans, right? And us as parents, we also make mistakes. We just do the absolute best that we can. That's it. But we're going to make mistakes. So we may decide as parents as adults, that the value system that we were taught has to be, renegotiated or changed or added to. And that's what's great about information, because you can figure it out. If that's what you want to do, you can do that. If you want to do something else, you can do something else. But that's where a feeling of insecurity starts, because our parents teach us what is valuable and what is not valuable, what is flexible and what is a hard line on our value system, like who I am and what's important and what's overarching and what are the rules, right? We also get parents who do the do as I say, not as I do. And, maybe we've all felt that way. Like, I really wish you would do what I say and not what I do, because that is confusing as we're growing up, right? Because we also, as children, we learn through modeling. We will learn what's important. We will learn what is acceptable. We will learn how to behave through watching our parents model that. Okay. So as an example, we watch our parents model their relationship. Okay. So this is why we talk about, or you've heard, a woman will want to grow up and marry a man like her dad, or a man will grow up and want to marry a man like his mother. We've maybe heard that before, but a lot of that comes from relationships are modeled for us. So as a woman, if I'm watching my parents' relationships, I'm learning two things. I'm learning, one, how to be a woman in a relationship, how to be a wife. But I'm also learning what kind of man is acceptable. What kind of man should I look for, when I'm looking for a man, which again, just like a lot of things, that's great if it's great. It's not so great if it's not so great, because these things are internalized. We learn through watching things being role modeled. And, single parenthood does happen. And It's unfortunate, but then there's difficulty there because what relationship can we watch be role modeled, right? Do we then look to our grandparents or our aunts and uncles? Um, does our mother or father get a boyfriend or girlfriend or get remarried? Like at some point, we want to role model a respectful, loving, workable, healthy relationship for our kids so that as they get older and they're out in the world trying to couple up, they know how they need to navigate that and then who they need to look for, right? So that was just an example. Relationships. We also get our super ego. Oh, Prince Mugo says I'm stepping my game up. Thank you. I'm figuring out StreamYard. Hopefully. Okay. So super ego also can come from religious dogma, the religious rhetoric, what we're taught. So here in the United States and a lot of Western places, you'll have the three major monotheistic religions. You'll have Islam, Judaism, and Christianity that are the most prevalent. And in those religions, there are tenets, there are rules, there's a value system that is started young. To get that value system into children, right? That's why we have, Sunday school and Catholicism has something called a school of religion, where it's a class. But that value system can also become something that we internalize. And then as adults, we figure out, am I keeping the whole of that? Maybe somebody didn't, live that. Again, do as I say, not as I do. So it's sometimes tough to see people in church saying or teaching a specific value system, and then we see they're not living it, especially as children, right? Children are very black and white thinkers. They're very concrete. We all were, where you either follow the rules and you're right, or you break the rules and you're bad. So it's difficult when we're learning through role modeling to see people being hypocritical or waffling in the dogma, those kind of things. But as adults, we all get to use our discernment and our own mind and our own thoughts to figure out what works best for us, regardless of how we're shamed for it. So if I do anything, I want to empower adults to make decisions for their own lives that works for them. That's what's important. Okay. I don't see anybody coming up yet, but if you want to, you can with the two rules. You may get muted if you go off the rails. And anybody who has called themselves a troll before or has told me, I'm not letting them come up. Hi, Toya. Thanks for coming in. Okay. So we know what insecurity is, and we know, that it has to do with our value system, what we value, our sense of self, how other people treat us, those kind of things. So where does the wisdom come in? Like, it doesn't sound very comfortable. It doesn't sound like a great thing that we want to have. The dogs are going to bark. Okay. Stop. Okay. On my foot growling. Okay. So what is wisdom? So in dialectical behavioral therapy, I like their definition of wisdom, right? Most of us have a sense or a feeling of what wisdom is, but there's different ways to explain it. So I like to use the dialectical model. So what that model says is that one side of our mind is our emotion mind. So we think emotionally with this side of us. So think about it this way. When you're like, you lose your temper or you're overcome with emotion, then your emotion mind is what is in charge. Okay. So there's this emotional thought process that happens. It is not logical, but it can identify that you have a lot of emotions. The other side of our mind is our logical mind. So this is where we think through everything completely rationally, completely logically. And so if you think about if there's ever been a time where something's happening and you just had no feeling about it whatsoever, or you cut off your feelings, like just turned it off and became completely apathetic and worked through something completely logical, like Spock or a robot, then that's that logical mind. Now, what DBT says is that our wise mind uses both because both minds are giving us information, right? If we're solely using our logical mind and not taking into consideration how we feel about it or how other people are evoking emotion in us, then we're disregarding important information. Or if we're completely emotional about something and we can't be rational at all about what's going on, we're missing important information. So to be wise is to gather all the information, emotional and logical, to make rational decisions. So hopefully that makes sense. So that is wisdom. That is using wisdom, regardless of how you feel about it, regardless of how apathetic something makes you feel, or you have people throwing all the numbers at you. We make wise decisions. So how do we use our wise mind in insecurity, right? What is the wisdom that comes from feeling insecure? All right, looks like Ian is here, so I'm gonna let Ian come up. And hey, Ian, you are muted. So
I
Ian,
got you.
okay. All right. So I'll give you a couple minutes to, make your statement, say what you need to say, and we can talk about it.
Okay. I haven't been in that long, but I hear what you're saying about the wisdom of insecurity. I think I kind of have considered this, in the past through some of the things that I've studied. But where I'm at now, because we're always evolving, what I'm finding is that I can't remember, concretely, how I agree with that. I can't necessarily remember, because a lot of what I've studied, at a certain point, I'm just living. But here's the thing: in terms of relationships, where I'm finding it now is that relationships, for a lot of these concepts, relationships with other human beings make a lot of the theories and concepts that we live by kind of difficult to keep in practice. And I guess I'm saying that to say, because yeah, when something goes wrong, if you don't have other people that may depend on you, or other people who may judge you, and socially ostracize you in some way, it's in that way it sounds great. But when you add in these other people, it becomes super difficult, and then it's almost like, let me not even have a theory, you know what I'm saying? Because trying to go against, trying to practice this theory, and hold on to that, the energy it takes to hold on to whatever I'm practicing, versus dealing with these human beings, sometimes feels more of a distraction than just, winging it, if you get what I'm saying.
Hmm. I totally do. I mean, the thing is that like we can do all of this self-help. We can grow as a person. We can have these tenets that we want to live by. The difficulty when you're growing as a person is almost exactly the same as when somebody is going through substance abuse treatment. And I say it because of this. When you're going through substance abuse treatment, something they'll tell you as you get to the end is you can't hang out with the same people who are still doing the stuff. If you hang out with people who are still using substances, you're more likely to start using substances again. And you can't continue to do the same things, hang out in the same places as when you use substances, or you are more likely to get drugged back into it. The same thing happens when we do self-help, right? Like when we're doing the studying, we're watching multiple people, we're getting the information, we're reading things, we're finding out things, and we are growing and evolving and changing, but we're still interacting with all the same people that knew you before you changed, who expect you to be the way you were before, who know how to push your buttons, who know how to get you riled up, who can put you back in the mindset that you evolved from. And when you're doing all the same things and you're around all the same people and none of them have grown, then you're at a risk to go back. Now, am I saying cut everybody off? No. I mean, in substance abuse, they say, yes, cut everybody off. For me, it's more as you grow, you're going to have to look at who's in your orbit. Okay, so I know somebody who uses this, and I think that, you guys know, I think visually, like I like a good metaphor. He says, if you are in the middle and then you have these orbits outside of you, right? Where your inner orbit may at times have nobody in there, or maybe one or two people, right? Because those are the people who are so close to you. They know you better than anybody. They know you when you're vulnerable. They are close. And then there are people that are in subsequent orbits. And so as we grow and evolve, we always have to reconsider how that orbit is working. Like we may have people that we have to move to outer orbits that don't have as much access or as much effect on who we are. I mean, maybe there are people that we need to cut off and just say, you know what, you are not conducive to my health and to my growth as a person. And if that's the case, that's the case. You got to do what you have to do for you. Most of the time, there are people in outer rings that we start saying, oh, now we align. We have a lot in common, actually. And we'll pull them in closer. And then people that will push out. We'll get them more arm's length, a little bit farther away, not so much access, not so much interaction, so that we're not pulled into the behaviors and the thinking and the emotions that we had prior. Hopefully that makes sense. Hi, Domenico. Thank you for being in here. Fellow aware beings in chat. I like that. Hopefully that makes sense, though. Okay.
That does make sense. And I guess for me, personally, I'm looking at with whatever philosophy that we have, and you see this, because a lot of philosophies started small. A lot of the times, even our own personal philosophies, many times as human beings, we need support, even in our own in our own personal philosophies. So again, that's where it becomes for me the crux of the matter is that so even the people that are on your side, do they actually support? Not even just support from a standpoint of do they agree or disagree, or do they even understand in order to support you within whatever the way of thinking that you have? In a lot of cases, that becomes the issue. So how do you practice? Basically, in a lot of cases, alone in your theoretical approach.
I think at times we can consider ourselves lucky that we are in an age of information and social media, because a lot of times, and it's unfortunate, but a lot of times I see people who kind of find their tribe online because the people that are around them aren't necessarily the most supportive or understanding of where they're going with things. And they may even get shamed for questioning. Seems like if people question their religion or their religious dogma, they could get shamed, right, from the people that are around them. But if they go online and talk to other people who are questioning it, sometimes it reaffirms their faith system, and other times they make some adjustments, and sometimes they leave. So we can consider ourselves lucky that we actually have the option to go online and find people that you can have the same kind of conversations with that you want to have, and find a support system online. I think the more, as tough as it is, the more authentic that we can be in ourselves, then the right people will find you. If you are yourself, then everybody else will adjust. And sometimes people leave our lives. And, when I'm talking about putting people in outer rings or saying you can't be in my life anymore, or people leaving our lives, I'm not making light of that. That is hard. It is hard because these are people who were close to us that we care about. But we have to kind of weigh, are we okay with staying in the matrix? Are we okay being this way? Or do we have this urge to question and to find out and to become self-aware and to really question why we feel and think and do the things that we do? And in doing so, it's probably going to change some of those things, because our original value system, our original indoctrination came from our parents. And so it worked for them. It's not always going to work for us. So we have to question it. Domenico says, would you mind if I come up and join you guys on this topic? Yeah, Domenico. I mean, I don't think I've seen you in here before, but I'm willing to let you talk for a little bit. But yeah, you can click the link and come up. Okay. All right. Domenico, I'm going to add you up. If you want to unmute, I'll give you a couple minutes to talk on your view of this.
Hey Maggie. Hey Ian. How you guys doing?
Good.
Continue. I don't mind flowing with this, but if you want to share a couple minutes, I guess there is that discernment part, hence wisdom and insecurity. And when we practice in some areas, whether you're doing it or being it, then you can cross-relate, hence discernment, each moment to moment. Some people just don't have a vocal cord quite open yet to share those things. But I think when people are in certain situations, it's actually revealing more about them than making them. And I think you tapped on a little bit about the upbringing part. When children, as we're growing up as children, what are we observing and what are we experiencing?
Absolutely. And discernment gets short-circuited by feeling insecure, right? Because then we're not trusting our take on whatever in the situation, right? When we have discernment, when we trust our discernment, meaning, we have an outward thought about what's going on, we have a gut feeling about what's going on, we use our wisdom, meaning discernment, to make a decision about what's going on. But when we're feeling insecure, it's like it short circuits that discernment. And kind of hearkening back to parents, depending upon how forcefully something was taught to us, we will even guilt ourselves into not questioning that thing, because it was ingrained in us so hard that we'll feel guilt simply by questioning that tenet instead of trusting our discernment. So thank you for saying that. I want to talk about a couple of people which give us kind of some insight into using wisdom for our insecurity. Alan Watts, which if you haven't heard of him, please look him up. There are videos that have Alan Watts speaking his lectures all over YouTube. What's interesting is he put out his theories in 1951, but it applies. It still applies. He actually has a book called The Wisdom of Insecurity. And what he argues that insecurity is pervasive and chronic for all of us, because we as human beings are always seeking security in a very unstable world, right? So we are living in chaos or instability, and we're always searching for security. So we always feel insecure because that's what we're looking for. And simply by looking for it means you don't have it, if that makes sense. So he says, no human ever has had pure stability. From the moment you're born, there is instability. Okay. So for him, he says sanity. So keeping your sanity about the whole situation is embracing insecurity and then just doing the best you can in each moment and using discernment. So he uses the word discernment, right? Just reminding yourself about all that stuff in the past, right? Previous relationships, previous mistakes, stuff you overthink on, all of that, reminding yourself, I did the best I could with what I had to work with in the moment. And that's it. And then in each moment you have, just do the best you can with what you have to work with and keep it moving. Use your discernment. So that's where he says the insecurity, where there's wisdom in that, is by accepting that we all feel and have insecurity because we live in an unstable world. So we just use that to our own benefit. Okay, Prince Mugo says, the thing is, the outer circle shows you sample size sign from the inner circle. What you give the outer. Oh, okay. So sort of like, how are you moving people around in your circle, I think is what you're saying, Prince Mugo. So if you could clarify that a little bit, because I understand you want to know how do you stop it, but maybe clarify what you're meaning about the outers and the inners. Okay. So still talking about what some people have said about this. So Jiddu Krishnamurti and he is a philosopher. He's an Indian philosopher. He has one of my very, very, very favorite quotes, and I say it a lot. And it is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So if a person feels no insecurity in a sick society, right? And there is no purely healthy society, right? It is inherently unhealthy, especially if you live in a class system or a caste system. If you live in a society where homelessness is prevailing, where mental health is not addressed, you know what I mean? Like where you have, it becomes an incarceral state, a lot of that stuff, that there is a sickness, right? So if you have somebody who is feeling no insecurity, meaning they are very well adjusted to this sick society, by proxy, it means they are not healthy. Okay. So if you are feeling insecure, living in a sick society, if you are seeing the instability, if you are seeing the sickness of the society that you live in, then that's actually a measure of health. And isn't it strange that we're taught, if you're feeling a lot of anxiety, if you have a lot of worry, if you're experiencing some depression, but it comes from that you're living in a sick society, we're told you're the unhealthy one, not the society, right? Shouldn't we be having feelings about a sick society when we're presented with its illness? When we're presented with, the prison industrial complex, when we're presented with the pervasiveness of homelessness, when we're presented with what happens to vulnerable people in our society, we should feel a little pissed. We should feel a little anxious. We should feel a little sad. Like, those feelings are actually appropriate, and there's wisdom in those feelings. Without those feelings, we would have no motivation to do something about it, right? We would just accept it if we were completely apathetic.
Hey,
If
can I say
we,
something? Go ahead.
let me finish my sentence real quick, Ian, and then you totally can. Even if we, because you will hear this sometimes, go at it completely logical and say, well, this is something you can't stop, or this is just a side effect of capitalism, or this just happens, or those people just decided to be that way and that's it, then there's no wisdom in that, because there's no motivation to fix the illness. So that's where I was going with that. Go ahead, Ian. What did you want to say?
Yeah, because when you were saying that, I just was thinking about in terms of my daughter getting counseling when she was younger. I've had a lot of issues in terms of parental alienation with my ex-wife and stuff, and you know, my ex-wife or my daughter, I forgot which one, said that she was getting counseling when she was
Mhm.
younger or whatever, and one of the reasons was because of the fact that she missed me, right? And I
Mm.
was always trying to get in touch with her, but she had a psychologist, and I'm like, okay, so you were seeing a psychologist or whatever for all these years. How come at no time, based on whatever diagnosis and whatever program you were going through, how come at no time was there ever a she speaking to the because she's underage, speaking to your mother or saying to you, why don't you reach out to your father? Why don't you reach out to him? Because God knows I'm trying to be in contact with my daughter all the time. Where is it that okay, now you're given these from the standpoint from therapy, you're getting therapy to have tools to deal with so-called issues, so-called that you're having. So, but again, like, so the society for her, the society is the family, right?
Mhm.
She doesn't have the full awareness of society yet, but she has more awareness. Okay, the family is the quote unquote society for her. How come at no point, instead of trying to fix her, why not just put her in touch with her father, and and have the and have the whatever anxiety or issues that she was having eliminated. But that's not the wisdom with regard to, as you're saying, fix her. But there's nothing wrong with her. She just needs her
Right.
father.
She misses her dad. Like, that's totally appropriate. So what I was thinking as you were talking is that sometimes in mental health, we get a little caught up in collateral information, meaning that we have a parent who may have, and I'm assuming since she missed you, she had residential custody, but you guys probably had shared custody. But so she's bringing this little girl in, and she's telling the therapist all of this stuff, right? Giving her whole side of the scenario, and then says, so she can't see her dad, or she's not allowed to see her dad very much. Um, so fix her for missing her dad. Sometimes in mental health, especially new therapists, we can get a little caught up in the collateral. Now, me and several therapists that I know who are more family oriented and also fight against alienating parents, which unfortunately in this society usually means the dad. Um, we will tell the mother, okay, what's the dad's phone number? I'm going to call him. And we will get his side of the scenario. We may even ask, is there a PFA? Is there a no contact order? Because if not, and her concerns, your child's concerns have a lot to do with her father, then I'm going to talk to her. And then at the next appointment, I'm going to have her dad come in and we are going to have a conversation, right? Because if the problem is him, then I need him here, right? And we need to figure it out. And usually that leads to, I've got mom, dad, and kid all in a room. If we can't have a good conversation at that point, then the kiddo leaves and I'm just having a conversation with the parents. And we're going to have a conversation about what's most appropriate. And our relational dysfunction can spill over onto our child. The other thing that it makes me think of is if I had a parent who came in and said the problem was missing her dad, and there's no order saying she can't, I would probably tell her, well, take the 1 hour that you were going to see me every week and go drop her off at her dad's. She obviously doesn't need to come see me if she needs to see her dad.
Nice.
Right.
Because Maggie, the thing and the reason I know that's for sure, because my ex-wife I know told me for sure. She told me that my daughter used to cry. When she was at the house, my daughter would just break out crying, saying that she missed me. So instead of my wife, because I was a good father, instead of my wife just putting me, okay, she's crying now. Oh, here's the phone. Talk
Right,
to your
call your dad.
She puts her in therapy.
Right. FaceTime, turn on FaceTime, call your dad. Talk to your dad for a little bit. Do you want to go over there tomorrow? Do you want to go see dad? Those are simple answers, but we're living in a sick society where everybody is told what's right and told not to trust your gut, to not listen to your own thoughts on things, and the family court system, I mean, don't get me started, but your example totally plays into this. Like it is unhealthy to be well adjusted to a sick society. Like it's literally unhealthy. We should be feeling some things. Now, if we're overcome with anxiety or we can't get past it, or depression, or it's affecting our ability to function, that's when we seek assistance for it. And as all of you have heard me say before, probably everybody needs therapy, but not everybody needs therapy in the traditional therapeutic way, right? Sometimes we get therapy by going and hanging out with our friends, going and talking with family members, venting to our barber or our hairdresser, going to get a massage and just relaxing and giving ourselves time to recenter and think, going online and learning about things, talking to your support system. Like all of that stuff is therapeutic. And we all do need that. We do need therapeutic things in our lives that help us to feel better, to be healthier, to be more of ourselves. Domenico, who's up here, is saying a lot of things. Yeah. And is talking about, those developmental years. And it fuels our feelings of feeling insecure. Yeah. And, speaking about the midbrain gut. But I wanted to go back up to Prince Mugo because I asked him to clarify. So he says, basically people who not really close to you get the bad end of the stick because what your inner circle has done. So much that happens in this world is because the person who came before you effed it up. Think about it. We get judged because we look like, sound like, act like somebody else who caused a problem before us, and be that in any sphere of our life. This happens with me as a therapist, and all therapists should be able to tell you that something that we learn in school is that sometimes you are not the right one to do the therapy based on literally nothing that has anything to do with you. So you're just not the right person. If you're going to get therapeutic benefit from somebody, you have to vibe with them. You have to, and if they remind you of somebody who hurt you, you're not going to get it, and that's okay. It's totally fine. I've transferred people off my case before because they've said, you know what, I like everything you're saying, but you just remind me of my mom or my sister or an ex-girlfriend, or I can't relax around women, or I can't say everything around a white person, or what I have to share, I would feel better um telling somebody else. And the whole point is people getting better for themselves, feeling better for themselves, feeling healthier and stronger for themselves. So it has nothing to do with me. People have transferred to me for similar reasons. So it's whoever you vibe with. If you vibe with somebody, then take the information. You don't have to explain it to anybody. But relationships are the same way. Like, we may meet somebody new, and because our last 5 relationships, the person screwed up, we're going to be on guard. We're going to be on guard against those same types of behaviors. And sometimes we get confirmation bias. Like, we're looking for it so hard, and we have one foot out the door so hard as a protection mechanism. We're like, they said that. They probably think this. That means they're going to start doing this. And it's a protection mechanism is the problem. And so, yeah, we have to think about that, but also grant yourself some grace. Like, you've been through some stuff, right? If you're feeling protective about yourself, you've been through some stuff. Grant yourself some grace for being protective. If people cannot understand and they can't empathize with it, keep it moving, give yourself some grace for protecting yourself. It's okay. And anybody who's there for you and wants to see you successful is going to empathize. They're going to understand. They're gonna get it, and they're gonna be willing to hang out for the long haul. They're not gonna judge you for protecting yourself.
Maggie,
Yes.
yeah. So that was going back to what I said earlier, and my concern was the idea of protecting yourself, because whatever theory that you have, and I'm speaking for me personally, whatever theory or way of being or lifestyle that you have, in order to practice that, in some ways, if someone doesn't understand you, right, they don't understand, okay, yeah, no, in certain circumstances, you may be okay, but maybe when I go here, these people don't like me. So, you can't really say, okay, I'm saying you're overreacting or whatever, but you're not me. So in some cases, that's where I talk about the human element. Other
Mhm.
people will kind of encourage you to let down your guard and be in a way such that you can't necessarily be fully present with whatever your practice is. What I'm saying, and these are well-meaning people, but they just can't see it. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm. Absolutely. And I want to put a caveat in here. If anybody comes to you and tells you, I need you to let down your guard. I need you to be vulnerable with me. I need you to share your inner thoughts with me. I need that for our connection. Okay. I'm not saying there's something wrong with them. Okay. Let me preface that, because some people do feel like, hey, I've shared all my vulnerable stuff. I need some vulnerability from you so that we can be equal in this situation. And that's a normal feeling. But I tend to sink more into, if I if I am a safe person to be vulnerable with, if I vibe with you, if I have proved that I'm empathetic, I'm not going to judge you, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to listen for understanding, and I'm going to help you, and I'm going to comfort you, and I will not degrade you. I'm not going to tell people your business. I will make sure that you're chin is high when we are in public with each other, no matter what I know. If I've already shown and proved that, then at some point a person will be vulnerable with me. Like the onus to make that happen is on me, or the person that's telling you I need you to be vulnerable. The onus on that being able to happen is on them, right? It's not on you. I would never want to force somebody to be vulnerable. If they're not comfortable doing that, there's a reason. Be it things that have happened to you in the past. Maybe you were vulnerable with somebody and then they used it all against you, or they shamed you, or they degraded you, or they told other people about it, or XYZ. Then you should be protective. If I have to tell you to get vulnerable with me, that means you don't feel safe with me yet. If I got to tell you to do it. If you do it when you're comfortable with it and I am a safe person to do that with, then I'm honored in that. And it's a big responsibility. So that was just what that was making me think of, is like, we have a bunch of people telling people, you know, you need to be more emotionally intelligent, you need to be more vulnerable, you need to blah blah blah, you know. If it was comfortable and safe to do so, it would just naturally happen. Hi, D. Scott. Thanks for coming in here. D. Scott says, recently had to cut off a therapist I was dating because of her feminist leanings. She was using her powers for no good. Yeah, and it is difficult when people learn the language of mental health and therapy. I mean, people who've been in therapy for years and years and years know the language, and at times will use it as a weapon against other people, you know. And that's one of my big things, is like, if stuff's being used as a weapon or to create misinformation, I'm going to come on here and tell you exactly what it means so that you have a shield against those weapons. Yeah. D. Scott says it has to be voluntary. If you are a safe person to be vulnerable with, and you have a lot of interaction with somebody, it's just going to come naturally. And it may be slow and it may evolve over time because of a lot of past hurts. But again, if you want to be in the inner circles with somebody, there's responsibility in that. You have to be good. You know, you have to be good to them to be there. Okay, one more quote that I want to get into. John Bowlby, and he created the attachment theory. So like, it will tell you if you create attachments securely, if your attachments are more anxious, or if you avoid attachments. Okay, like they used to call that commitment phobe or whatever, are the avoidance. Yeah, D. Scott says trust is earned, not given. Exactly. And if somebody's not willing to put in the work to earn your trust, then you have to think about that. You need to discern on that. Okay. So John Bowlby says, all of us from the cradle to the grave are happiest when life is organized as a series of excursions, long or short, from the secure base provided by our attachment figures. So let's think about that. All of our lives, we feel happiest when we can organize our life into small trips away from our base, right? Our base being where we feel safe and around the people that we are attached to. So when we have a secure attachment, then we're going to take little excursions away from that. Like, we're going to go study this thing and come back. Or think about your house, you know, you're going to go on vacation and you're going to come back, you know. So what he says is that we don't find stability and happiness by seeking stability and happiness. We create our home base. Then we feel much more comfortable to take excursions away, right? If we feel unstable in our home base, we're not going to question anything because we're constantly focused on that. So we find the happiness and stability first by having a home base of people, your inner sanctum. So really using discernment about that as well. Okay. So let's talk about how do we address our insecurity. Like we've talked a lot about using discernment or our wise mind, using our wisdom, right? But sometimes our insecurities can hit us again, or somebody comes at us hard with the shaming, or our guilt just sort of pops up and hits us. So there are some steps. How many did I write down? 7. Okay. So number 1 is creating your secure base of attachment, right? And make sure that your secure base also feels secure with you, right? We can't just collect people and put them in our inner sanctum because they make us feel good, right? That it's reciprocal, right? Everybody feels good being where they're at. Create your secure base. And it can be anyone. It can be your personal life. It could be family. It could be friends. It could be treatment providers. It could be people online. It could be just your base, your tribe, whatever you want to call them, Thank you for being up here, Domenico. He had to go. Okay. Then the second one, and this is in all the studies, and it's kind of interesting, but it's project confident body language. It's kind of that fake it till you make it will actually make you feel less insecure. So there was a study, the pencil test, right? So they took people and they had them rate their depression on a scale of 0 to 10. And then they had them hold a pencil in their lips. So if you imagine you hold a pencil in your lips, it makes you frown, right? It just creates this frown, right? And they had them do that for a period of time. And then they had them rank their depression 0 to 10. And what they found that people were more depressed after holding a frown over a period of time. So they decided to redo the test, but kind of try to do it the opposite way. So they gave people a pencil and had them hold it in their teeth, right? Which creates a smile. And so they had them rate their depression before, hold the pencil in your teeth, hold the smile, then rate your depression, and people were less depressed than their baseline. So there's something about our body language that is biofeedback. It gives us feedback about our emotional states. So projecting body language makes sense. In 2010, there was a study that people who did powerful poses, now not like bodybuilding, not power poses, but powerful poses, like your fists on your hips, your head up, your chin up. So people who did powerful poses 1 minute a day actually reduced their stress hormone, which is called cortisol. It reduced their cortisol in their body just by 1 minute a day, doing a power pose, having that body language, their stress went down. So, it seems kind of silly to project confident body language, but it actually works.
Well, Maggie,
Yes.
I was going to say, because that's what I was going to say before you brought up the last study, was that maybe that in order from a physiological perspective to have a smile or to have a certain pose, the way that our body, because we're still learning about the body, maybe there's certain positive hormones that surge as we engage in certain specific poses and smiles and whatever. Maybe it takes a hormone. But maybe we think it's just not the brain, but maybe it's a hormone that also makes us that has to be going through us in order for a smile to happen. On an instant, whatever basis like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and a lot of our emotional neurotransmitters that affect our emotions are actually made in the gut and travel to the brain. And so that, again, it's all that biofeedback, right? If we listen to our gut, which is actually where our emotions start, and work through that biofeedback, then we're going to balance our hormones, our neurotransmitters, our chemical system, in the way in which we want to project, right? Exactly what you were saying. The third one is do things you enjoy and that you're good at, right? Increase your confidence. It helps you feel more secure. That one makes sense, right? If I'm good at this and I enjoy it, I'm going to go do that. It's going to make me feel better, right? Voice gratitude often and out loud for what's going well. Sometimes we're so focused on the things that make us feel insecure, we've totally lost sight of the good stuff. And so we get imbalanced because our focus is on all the insecure things, not the secure things. We all take things for granted. That is a human thing that happens where we inadvertently take things for granted that are going well, or people who are secure and stable in our lives. We can at times take them for granted because the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Like the loudest, most annoying things are the things that we attend to, and we sometimes forget to turn around and say, hey, thank you. Thank you for being here. Or I'm super glad that, that my car starts every time, that my car runs well and it's maintained well, and I can always rely on it. And that it gives me a sense of security to have a vehicle, that is useful. So those kind of things help us to balance our vision and what we're looking at. Number 5, one of the things I like a lot, try to control only what you can control. If you can't control it, don't waste your energy on it. If you cannot do anything, like literally anything about it, don't waste your energy on it. Okay. But if you can do something about it, if you can control part of it, then control it. Feeling out of control is feeling insecure. So if you can't control it, quit attending to it. Okay. Number 6, work on feelings of resilience, right? So everybody that's in here right now and everybody on the replay gang that watches, your ability to survive everything that you've been through is 100% to date. So everybody's alive right now in here, everybody who's watching the replay, your ability to survive everything you've been through is at 100%. You literally have survived everything that you've been through. So if you're at 100% of being able to survive everything that you've been through, and if you're an adult, you've been through some stuff, we all have, then you can survive. You have the ability. You've handled stuff before. Maybe not the total best way, but you did the best you could with what you had to work with at the time. And you're going to keep doing that. And that's all anybody can ask of you. You can say to yourself, I'm in charge of my life. I can do hard things and I can get through stuff. And I know I can get myself through stuff. So work on those feelings of resilience, that the things that cause insecurity, if something bad happens, if my foundation is really shook, I got me. I can count on me. My ability to survive is at 100% to date. Okay. D. Scott says, 99% of things we can't control. That 1% is ourselves. Yeah. Again, you can't make anybody do anything. And even ourselves, so much of what we do is unconscious and subconscious. When you got to sleep, you got to sleep. And you're gonna sleep eventually, no matter how much you want to stay awake. So there's only so much of ourselves we can control, so control what you can control. The rest of it, use that stoic principle, the let them theory. Whatever other people are going to do, let them. Let people do what they want to do. It'll show you what they would rather do. Just let them do what they want. It shows you what they want to do, and then you make decisions from there. You control your response. Okay, last one, number 7, build up your social network, and make sure that your social network reinforces your sense of self and belonging, right? Don't let other people tell you who you are. Don't let other people tell you what to do. Don't let other people tell you what to think. That's up to you. build up your social network that reinforces your sense of self and your sense of belonging. And sometimes it's not the people who you think it was, you know, who you think was going to be. It's different. But everybody finds their tribe, right? So at the end of the day, actually, I'm going to say first, thank you, Domenico, for coming up and saying what you needed to say. Thank you, Ian, for coming up and participating and sharing. And those were great examples of what I was talking about. And, you know, super helpful. Do you, Ian, do you have any closing thoughts before you step down?
I do. Because earlier, because again, because it's interesting where you went with this earlier, where I was about the insecurity, wisdom of insecurity, where, like I said, it's very interesting because immediately what I was thinking about was the attachment theory in terms of more important than having a theory of living is having a home base, and then you can go out and then come back and go out and come back. I think for me, what I've learned over time, you know, with all that I've studied, that is the most important thing, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even beyond my ability, my cognitive, intellectual, emotional capabilities, having that, you know, as I've gotten older, that supersedes everything for me as far as what I understand. But not only that, to a different point, to where we were talking about in terms of the poses and different things like that. I want to find out, and maybe you have access to. My question is there a certain bit? I read an article or something, I forgot, or a book or magazine, I forgot, but it talked about how the most influential language concerning people is our gestures and things like that. So, you know, I guess before we developed the actual vocal speech, one of the most important ways that we communicated was through gestures. And I always give an example, like if you're talking to someone and you look to your left or look to your right, one of the most immediate things, even before saying anything, people are going to respond like, oh, they're going to look over there like, okay, what's over there? You know what I'm saying? Or if you point somewhere or do something, it's like, you know, that whole saying, yelling fire. But before yelling fire, if you can see people, their actions and behaviors have a huge impact on your emotional and mental psyche. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, you know, that becomes a big issue as kind of being kind of empathic. I see a lot of people, the way that they move and the way that they behave, and it becomes, for me, it becomes kind of disturbing, because I see a lot of people in this day and time, they're exaggerating a lot of their behaviors, and it
Mm-hmm.
seems to be, for me, it gets to be very unnerving. It's like, why aren't you just standing, and like, why are you flailing around? You know what I'm saying? You know, so it's not even just the speech of what you're saying. Your body language is saying a lot to me, and it's making me feel unsafe and unstable. Not that someone is posing a threat in that, but making me feel safe from a mental
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. You know, because
They're
the way
giving you
that
a
we think,
vibe
the way
based
that
on
we
their
think,
body language.
the way that we think and feel, in a lot of ways, is transitory. You know, you can pick up on that, and I think a lot of people are trying to influence other people through their gestures and their movements and things, different things, before even they're even having a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you for that, Ian. And thank you
Thank,
for coming up.
thank you,
Um,
thank you for having me.
absolutely. So Rael says Bowlby's work is something I've talked about in the space that he's in for a few years. Attachment theory is critical study into human development. Rael, do you have videos about attachment on your channel? If you do, please let us know so that we can check you out. And then, like, what is the name of the channel so that we can look at those? Because, as Ian was talking, there's a lot we could go into about that. But what I want to say is we as human beings are social creatures. We are intended and made to connect with one another. One of the very first things that we learn is attachment. Okay, so from a neurological perspective, when an infant is born, there is a reason why infants have big heads and big eyes. I've heard before, it was like, so we don't kill them, but it has more to do with eye contact with the mother and the infant. For both of them, it creates a bond, right? So the initial is with her, and then the father will hold the infant, and I'm talking birth, like we're in the hospital room. Father will hold the infant because it's all set up to be done right here in this time. He will make eye contact with the infant, and then they will be bonded. So what it creates with the parents in that situation, they get this strong sense of protection and caring and love. So like they will literally have like hormonal release and response in that moment. From that moment forward, those attachment figures of that infant consistently try to make and maintain eye contact. So this is something we feel like maybe we are doing it instinctually. We never really thought about it before, but think about when you're around infants, you're trying to make eye contact with them and you're trying to maintain eye contact with them, right? Like we will get in an infant's face, hi, baby, hi, so we're doing it instinctually, but what happens through the eye contact is it creates neurons in the brain for attachment. It starts to tell that infant who is safe to attach and how to attach. Okay. As they get older, we do another thing instinctually where we will bounce a baby up and down, or we'll bounce them on the knee and try to maintain contact. It's because at that time, we are building on the neurons that are already created for attachment to strengthen and reinforce that attachment. So instinctually, they're trying to look at us. Instinctually, we're creating those neurons of attachment. So this is the very first thing through body language, right? Body language, just looking at you in your eyes. We are creating connection and attachment. And then we need connection and attachment as human beings. If we say we don't need it, then we're saying we're not human. Possibly when we say we don't need connection and attachment is my connections and attachments have been so bad up to this point. I'm going to go inward. I'm going to go inside. I'm going to do me for a while. I'm going to figure this out. It's a sense of security, right? I got stuff I got to deal with. And I'm not going to do that for a while. Right. But we as human beings need physical affection. As an example, I work with, not all, but I have a lot of homeless men that I work with. And think about how often somebody looks into their eyes to speak. It's very rare. These men do not feel seen at all. And they're not. They're dismissed. They're disposable. They're thrown away. Nobody sees them. And absolutely nobody touches them, right? They can't shower. Hygiene is an issue. Wherever they're sleeping may cause smells and dirt and whatnot. But you know what? I got a shower and I got hand sanitizer and I can wash my hands and I can give somebody a hug. They're side hugs, or a fist bump, or, take somebody. I've literally taken a grown man's hand before because life freaking sucks. And if I can do just that, like I just see you, and touch you, and I'm not scared, and I'm not put off, and because you're a human being, whatever. It's a stink. It's a dirt. Who cares? My hands can wash. I'm fine. I am absolutely fine. Okay. All right. Okay, Rael. No, I don't. I've talked about this stuff when I used to go to the Roger Report. There's a great book on this called Attached, The New Science of Adult Attachment and How You Can Find and Keep Love. Rael, possibly, maybe, would you be interested in us presenting together? Like you could come on my channel and we could talk about attachment, because like you could talk about the male perspective and we could talk about like attachment in an insecure world right now. So if you're interested in that, my email address is in the about section on my channel. Shoot me an email and then we can talk about that. Okay. Adrian Hicks says, I don't know, meeting my kids scared the hell out of me. Damn alien. I think a lot of men, on a serious note, do get kind of scared because they get this overwhelming sense of oh crap, now I'm in charge of protecting another person, like a little itty person who can't take care of themselves at all. Like the responsibility can be a bit overwhelming. Okay, Rael says body language communicates more than verbal communication. Absolutely. He says, my professor whose PhD coursework dealt with homeless Black men. Oh, very good. And she said this was where she saw the human side of Black men and how much they needed women. I'm not necessarily going to say how much they need women, but they need support. I mean, when you have nobody, you need everybody. You know what I mean? Like they need support. They need to be seen. They need somebody to see them and touch them and be with them and sit with them and help, not just ignore and throw away. They are human beings, so treating them as human beings, it seems simple, but this is not, again, we live in a very insecure world. Okay. Rael says, okay, no problem. Awesome. Yeah. That might be cool to talk about attachment and relationships and get both perspectives. Oh, Adrian says it was just because they were aliens. I mean, babies do look weird when they first come out. All newborns have a face only their parents could love. They look weird. All right. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Sunday. Oh, Rael says, well, she meant women from the relationship perspective, which could have kept them getting to the homeless position. Oh, yeah. Yeah, now I see I get what you're saying. Right. Isn't it odd that men are the only ones who are not protected? Like everybody else gets to be protected. But, if you're a straight grown man, there are no protections. You don't get to be protected, right? There's no protections for you. All right. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Sunday. I will be back on Wednesday. If you guys are doing the shadow work piece, we're either going to do a movie review of Inside Out 2, or we're going to move more into people's purpose in your life. So, which is kind of connected to this. And then we'll have another live on Sunday next week. If Rael and I can get it together, we'll do that. But otherwise, we'll plan that one out and I'll post it up. All right. Everybody have a good Sunday. I'll see you Wednesday or Sunday. Bye.